She didn't pull away, not completely. A faint touch. Neither a rejection nor an embrace. You always find a way to complicate things. Her voice was barely above a whisper, not quite an accusation, but close. I smirked, my gaze lingering on the face I knew too well. I think you do that just fine on your own. Delilah exhaled sharply, as if trying to push me out of her mind. She shook her head, a gesture filled with unspoken conflict. I should go, but you won't. My voice was steady, certain. Her jaw clenched, as if my words had struck something she didn't want to admit. Victor isn't here. That made her hesitate. Her gaze flickered toward the grand entrance of the estate, as if expecting him to appear. But we both knew Victor wasn't the problem. I was the problem. She wasn't afraid of Victor. She was afraid of herself. Afraid of this moment. Afraid of what it confirmed, that despite everything, despite the life she had built, despite the careful wall she had constructed, she had never truly let me go. I leaned in slightly, close enough that she could feel my breath against her skin. Tell me one thing, I murmured. When you're with him, do you think about me? She inhaled sharply. A reflex. That's not fair, she whispered, voice trembling. I smiled, slow and deliberate. That's not an answer. She turned away, her hands clenched into fists, as if trying to hold on to the last bit of control she had. You have no idea how hard it's been, she admitted, her voice barely audible. I narrowed my eyes. Then tell me. She laughed, empty, devoid of humor. You wouldn't understand. Try me. She hesitated. I thought she might walk away, rebuild those walls she had spent years reinforcing, but then something cracked. I thought it would be different. Her voice was so soft it almost vanished in the wind. I went still. She hadn't meant to say that, but she had. I thought, she continued, that if I had everything I ever wanted, I would feel whole. I watched. Her feeling something tighten in my chest. Then she laughed again, a hollow sound, bitter and sharp. But I don't. The words hit me harder than any punch ever could. I could have lied to myself, pretended that I came here for business, for power, for something greater than her. But the truth was simpler than that. I came here to hear her say that she never truly forgot me, that I wasn't the only one lying awake at night, wondering what had happened, what had gone wrong, and what was still left between us. I took another step closer, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. So why are you still here? I asked softly. She looked up, eyes filled with turmoil, because leaving once was already too hard. I let the words sink in. She was telling the truth. She had built this life because she had to believe it was better than what we had. She had to believe leaving me was the right choice, that choosing safety over love was the smart decision. But now, she wasn't so sure. I reached up, my fingers lightly tracing the curve of her face. She didn't pull away, she didn't move. Her breathing hitched, her pulse pounding so hard I could feel it. And then, Delilah. A sharp voice shattered the moment. Victor. She flinched, stepping back as if burned. She turned quickly, almost instinctively. He stood at the entrance to the terrace, his face unreadable. But the storm behind his eyes was unmistakable. Delilah parted her lips, as if to speak, but no words came out. Victor looked at me, his jaw clenched. I think it's time we leave. For a second, she didn't move. For a second, I thought, but then she nodded, swallowed. Okay. I said nothing as she walked past me, as Victor placed a possessive hand on her back, as if to stake his claim. But just before she disappeared, she hesitated. Just for a second, just for a blink. And in that moment, I saw everything I needed to know. It wasn't over. Not even close. Victor knew it. Delilah knew it. And now, so did I. Victor's gaze lingered on me for a fraction too long. He was good at hiding it, but I saw the flicker of something beneath his composed exterior. Uncertainty, jealousy, fear, not fear of me, fear of what I represented. Delilah moved stiffly beside him, her posture too rigid, too controlled. She had spent years perfecting that mask of indifference, But tonight, it cracked, and Victor knew it. He wasn't a fool. I watched them walk away, my hands slipping into my pockets as I leaned against the terrace railing. The night was thick with tension, the air heavy with something unspoken. I wasn't done here. Not even close. The gala continued, as if nothing had happened. Laughter, glasses clinking, the murmur of high society conversations. Everything was perfectly rehearsed, as if every guest were playing a role they had mastered. But I wasn't interested in them. My eyes followed Delilah. She sat beside Victor, her smile flawless, her laughter effortless. A performance, a mask. She was playing her role just as I expected, just as she had to. But the problem with masks, they slip, and Delilah's did. Just once. A moment too long when our eyes met across the room. A hesitation when Victor leaned in to whisper something in her ear. A quick inhale, so quick, so subtle that no one else would notice. But I did. I always did. The night dragged on. I danced with women whose names I barely remembered, made small talk with men who pretended to respect me, and watched as Victor tightened his grip around his wife. Subtle, but telling. He was feeling the shift. He knew something was different tonight. He knew she was different tonight. I liked that. As the event neared its end, I made my move. Not towards Delilah, towards Victor. He was standing by the bar, nursing a glass of whiskey, the weight of the evening pressing down on him. "Victor," I greeted smoothly, stepping beside him. His jaw clenched, but he played along. "Still lingering, I see." I smirked. "Can you blame me? It's been a while since I've been back." He took a slow sip, his gaze steady. "And yet, you seem awfully interested in what hasn't changed." I chuckled, letting my silence speak for itself. Victor wasn't the type to explode. He was controlled, deliberate, always thinking 5 steps ahead. But tonight, for the first time, he looked like a man who had just realized he might be losing. "Careful, Victor," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. "When a woman starts hesitating, that's never a good sign." He went still. For a split second, his fingers tightened around the glass, just enough for me to see, just enough for me to know. I had won this round. But the game was far from over. Victor didn't break, not entirely, but the small crack in his composure was enough. I left him standing by the bar, his grip still tight around his glass, his mind racing through possibilities. He was a strategist, a man who didn't like losing control, and yet, tonight, he was off balance. That was all I needed. The night was winding down. Guests started filtering out, murmuring their goodbyes, but I wasn't ready to leave just yet. Delilah had excused herself earlier, a polite smile, a graceful exit. But I knew her. She wasn't the type to just disappear. Not unless she wanted to be found, and I knew exactly where to look. The estate's garden was quiet, bathed in silver moonlight, a perfect contrast to the grandeur inside, the whispers of leaves against the wind, the distant sound of water trickling from a fountain. And there, standing by the edge of the balcony overlooking the garden, Delilah. She didn't turn when I approached. She didn't need to. She knew I was there. "I thought you'd come," she murmured, her voice softer than before, stripped of the artificial charm she wore in the ballroom. I leaned against the stone railing beside her, keeping just enough distance. "Did you?" A ghost of a smile. "I know you better than you think." I chuckled. "And yet you still married him." She exhaled slowly, looking ahead. That was never the plan. Silence stretched between us, heavy with the weight of things left unsaid. Could push. I could ask her the questions we both knew were lingering. Why him? Why stay? Why now? But I didn't. Instead, I let the moment settle, because sometimes silence was the loudest answer of all. Her fingers brushed against the stone, tracing invisible patterns. "He knows, you know." I glanced at her. "Knows what?" She turned to face. Me then, and for the first time that night I saw it. Not the perfect wife, not the untouchable socialite, just Delilah, the woman I once knew. "The way you look at me," she whispered. "The way I—" She stopped, shaking her head as if trying to erase the words before they could take form. I took a slow breath. "And does that scare him?" She hesitated. Then, yes, a single word, soft, barely audible. But it changed everything, because if Victor was scared, that meant he was already losing. And Delilah, she was already slipping through his fingers. A chill hung in the air between us, neither of us speaking, the weight of the conversation pressing down like an unseen force. Delilah looked away first, not out of shame, but something heavier, regret, or maybe resignation. "You should leave," she murmured. I didn't move. She glanced back at me, her expression unreadable. "Victor is dangerous when he feels like he's losing control." A small, bitter smile pulled at my lips. "And what do you think I should be afraid of?" Her jaw tightened. "He has a way of making people disappear, Ethan." She said it so softly that if I weren't paying attention, I might have missed it, but I heard it, and it hit like a bullet. "Are cow telling me to run?" Her fingers curled against the stone railing. "I'm telling you to be careful." She took a slow step closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her skin against the cool night air. "Because if you keep playing this game," she whispered, "you might not make it out alive." I didn't leave right away. I walked back through the estate, back through the remnants of a party that had long lost its shine. The staff moved in practiced silence, cleaning up the aftermath of extravagance, and then a presence. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. Victor, standing by the grand staircase, his silhouette framed against the dim golden light of the chandeliers. "You know," he said, swirling the last of his whiskey in his glass, "Delilah has a habit of playing with fire." I met his gaze, unreadable and cold. "And what does that make you? The man pouring gasoline?" A slow smirk. "I prefer to think of myself as the one holding the match." For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us was no longer just tension. It was a battlefield. Victor took a step closer, his voice dropping just slightly. "You and I both know this isn't going to end well." I tilted my head. "For who?" His smirk faltered, just for a second. Then he chuckled, shaking his head like I was some reckless fool walking straight into his trap. "Good night, Ethan," he said smoothly, turning on his heel. I watched him disappear up the stairs, the weight of his presence lingering long after he was gone. It wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration. This wasn't a game anymore. It was a war. I barely slept that night. Not out of fear. No, fear wasn't the right word. It was something else. Anticipation. Victor wasn't the type to sit back and wait. If he thought I was a threat, he'd act. And fast. So I had to move first. By morning, I was already in my car, driving toward the city. I had connections, people who made a living uncovering secrets. If Victor had skeletons in his closet, I needed to dig them up before he buried me instead. But I wasn't prepared for what I found. The man I met was old school, a private investigator who'd been in the game long enough to know how to stay alive. He glanced over the file in front of him, then exhaled slowly, tapping a finger against the table. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked, his voice carrying the weight of a warning. I didn't answer. He slid the folder across the table. I opened it. Photos, documents, bank transfers, names, evidence. Victor wasn't just a wealthy businessman. He was a ghost. Behind every investment, there were whispers of disappearances. Behind every success story, there were rumors of people who had moved away and were never heard from again. And Delilah. Her name was there too, not as a victim, as an accomplice. I stared at the page for a long time, my mind struggling to reconcile the woman I knew with the one on paper. "You look surprised," the investigator muttered. I shut the folder. "I didn't expect this." "Then you weren't looking hard enough." His words sat heavy between us. For the first time since this all began, doubt crept in. Had I underestimated just how deep this went? And worse, had I been playing into Delilah's hands all along? The weight of the folder in my hands felt heavier than it should, not because of the paper inside, but because of what it represented. Delilah, an accomplice, a willing participant in whatever dark empire Victor had built. Had I been a fool this entire time? I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced myself to think clearly. I needed to be careful. One wrong move and I'd be the next name on Victor's long list of disappearances. I left the investigator's office without another word. My mind raced as I drove back to town, my fingers gripping the steering wheel too tightly. What the hell was I supposed to do now? A surprise. I barely had time to process the new information before my phone buzzed. It was Delilah. I hesitated. If she really was involved, answering this call could be dangerous. But ignoring it could be worse. I swiped to accept. "Hey," she said, her voice warm, familiar. "Are you okay? You've been acting different lately." I had to be careful. I couldn't let her know what I knew. "Yeah, just busy with work," I lied. "Are you sure?" she pressed. "I feel like something's off. Maybe we should talk in person." That was the last thing I needed, but saying no would only make her more suspicious. "Sure," I said. "When?" "How about dinner? Just us. No distractions. A private setting. Less risk of being overheard, and more risk of walking into a trap." I forced a chuckle. Sounds perfect, but my gut was screaming at me. I had just agreed to walk straight into the lion's den. That evening, I sat across from Delilah at an upscale restaurant, the kind of place where the lighting was dim and the wine flowed endlessly. She looked stunning, effortlessly elegant in a deep red dress that clung to her body in all the right places. But all I could see was the woman who had lied to me. Who was she, really? I had spent years believing I knew her, only to find out she was tied to a man who had ruined lives. "You're quiet tonight," she said, tilting her head slightly, her eyes searching mine. I forced a small smile. "Just tired." Her fingers brushed mine across the table. "Is everything okay between us?" There it was. The test. I had to play my role. Perfectly. I took her hand and squeezed it gently. Of course, why wouldn't it be? She smiled, but something in her eyes flickered. She doesn't believe me. My heart pounded. Did she suspect that I knew the truth? As the waiter poured more wine, I noticed a man sitting alone at the bar watching us. He was dressed casually, but there was something about his posture. Alert, calculating. Was he following me, or was he here for Delilah? "Do you know him?" I asked casually, nodding toward the man. Delilah turned her head slightly, just enough to glance at the bar. For the briefest moment her entire body tensed. It was subtle, but I caught it. She knew him. Her fingers curled around her wineglass a little too tightly, before she forced a smile. "No, why?" "Liar." I took a sip of my drink, pretending to think. No reason, just looked familiar. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Let's not focus on strangers. Tell me, what have you been up to lately?" She was redirecting, trying to keep control of the conversation. I played along, but my mind was racing. Who was that man, and why did he make Delilah nervous? The dinner ended without further incident, but my mind was spinning. Delilah had lied about the man at the bar. Of that I was certain. The way she tensed, the forced smile, the quick redirection, it all pointed to one thing: she was hiding something. And if she was hiding something, that meant I was in deeper than I had originally thought. I had to be careful. After we left the restaurant, Delilah clung to my arm, laughing softly at something I barely heard. My focus was elsewhere. I glanced over my shoulder. The man from the bar was now outside, standing near a lamppost, pretending to check his phone. He was following. Thus, every instinct screamed at me to act normal, to not let Delilah notice that I had seen him. We reached my car. I opened the door for her, forcing myself to smile as she slid inside. I walked around to the driver's side, then took another quick glance. He was still there, watching. I got in and started the engine, pretending not to notice him. I took a few detours on the way home just to be sure. By the time I pulled up to my house, I was convinced the man had followed us for a bit, but he was now gone, or so I thought. As I walked Delilah inside, a prickle ran down my spine. Something felt off, due. "You want some wine?" Delilah asked, slipping off her heels. "Sure," I said absently, my ears straining for any sound outside. I walked over to the window. The street was quiet, too quiet. Then, movement. A shadow near the tree line. Someone was watching. I turned back to Delilah, who was pouring wine like nothing was wrong. Either she was the best actress in the world, Or she truly had no idea what was happening outside. Or maybe, just maybe, she already knew. I clenched my jaw. If she was playing me, she was about to find out that I wasn't an easy target. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. If someone was watching, I couldn't let them know that I had noticed. Delilah handed me a glass of wine, her eyes soft, unreadable. "You seem tense," she said, tilting her head. "Just tired," I lied, forcing a smile. She stepped closer, resting a hand on my chest. "Then maybe you should relax." Her touch was warm, inviting, but my mind was elsewhere. I needed answers. "Actually," I said, setting my wine down, "I need to make a quick call, work stuff." Delilah pouted but nodded. "Don't take too long." I stepped outside, phone in hand, and walked toward my car, using the reflection in the window to scan my surroundings. The shadow near the trees was gone, but that didn't mean I was alone. I dialed a number. "Hey, it's me," I said. "I need a favor." The person on the other end hesitated. "What kind of favor?" "Can you track a license plate for me?" Silence. Then, "You in trouble?" "Not yet," I said. "But I need to know who the hell is following me." An hour later, while Delilah was in the shower, my phone buzzed with a message. I opened it. "The guy's name is Lucas Hayes, private investigator." I felt my stomach drop. A private investigator? Who the hell was he working for? I thought back to the way Delilah reacted when she saw him. The way she lied. Was he following me? Or was he following her? And if he was following her, why? My grip tightened on the phone. I needed to find out. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying the name Lucas Hayes. A private investigator meant someone had hired him. But who? I turned to look at Delilah, peacefully asleep beside me. Was she hiding something? Or was someone else digging into her secrets? Either way, I needed to know. The next morning, as Delilah made coffee, I casually asked, "So, do you know a guy named Lucas Hayes?" She froze for a fraction of a second, so quick that most people wouldn't have noticed. But I did. "Who?" she asked, feigning confusion. "Lucas Hayes," I repeated, watching her closely. "Private investigator, ring a bell?" She laughed. "Are you watching too many crime shows again?" I forced a chuckle. "Maybe. Just thought I saw him around." She turned away, sipping her coffee. "Probably nothing." She was lying, and now I needed proof. I waited until she left for work before grabbing my keys. If I wanted answers, I had to go straight to the source. Tracking down a private investigator wasn't easy, but I had a friend in law enforcement. A few calls later, I had an address. I drove across town and parked outside a small office with frosted windows. Lucas Hayes, PI. Taking a deep breath, I walked inside. A man in his late 40s with graying hair and tired eyes looked up. "You must be the guy I've been following," he said, smirking. So he wasn't even hiding it. "Who hired you?" I asked, skipping the small talk. He leaned back. "You already know the answer." I clenched my jaw. "Delilah?" He shook his head. "Nope." My heart pounded. "Then who?" He slid a file across the desk. I hesitated before opening it. Inside were pictures of me and Delilah, together, at dinner, holding hands, kissing. A cold realization hit me. Someone had been watching us for a long time. And then I saw the last page, the name of the client who hired him. My blood ran cold. It was Delilah's husband. My breath caught in my throat. Delilah's husband had been watching us. I looked up at Lucas. "How long has he been tracking us?" Lucas sighed. "About 3 months. He suspected something, but he needed proof before making his move." 3 months? That meant from the very start of my relationship with Delilah he had known. I flipped through the photos again. Some were taken from a distance, others up close, too close. That meant I glanced around, suddenly feeling exposed. "Are we being watched right now?" Lucas shook his head. "No, not anymore. My job was to get the evidence and report back, which I did. Which meant Delilah's husband now had everything he needed." I swallowed hard. "So what happens now?" Lucas leaned forward. "That depends on him. But if I were you, I'd be very careful." When I got home, Delilah was in the kitchen, humming softly as she cooked. For a moment I hesitated. Should I tell her? No. Not yet. If she didn't already know, then springing this on her would only make things worse. Instead, I acted normal. I kissed her on the cheek. Smells good. What's for dinner? Spaghetti, she said, smiling. As we ate, I studied her. She looked too relaxed. Either she was a fantastic actress, or she truly had no idea her husband was onto us. Halfway through dinner, she glanced up. You're quiet tonight. Just tired, I said quickly. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. You work too much. I forced a smile. She had no idea. That night, while Delilah slept, I couldn't shake the paranoia creeping up my spine. I got up and checked my phone. Then, on impulse, I searched for Delilah's husband online. His name was David Connors. A few articles popped up. I skimmed through them, but one headline made my blood freeze. David Connors, CEO of Connors Security Solutions, expands private surveillance division. Security Solutions. I clicked on the article. His company specialized in private investigations, surveillance, and counterintelligence, which meant he wasn't just an angry husband. He was an expert at catching people like me. I sat frozen, staring at the screen. David Connors wasn't just any husband. He was a man who made a living hunting people like me, and I had walked straight into his trap. I needed to think, fast. If David had been collecting evidence for 3 months, he wasn't just looking for proof. He was planning his move. Would he confront me directly? Would he go after Delilah, or worse? Would he wait until I let my guard down and destroy me when I least expected it? My hands were clammy as I put my phone down. There was only one thing I could do now. I needed to get ahead of him. The next morning I skipped work. My head was pounding and I knew I had to act before David did. But before I could decide what to do, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. A distorted voice spoke. I know what you did. Every hair on my body stood up. Who is this? I tried to sound calm, but my voice cracked. The caller chuckled, a low, eerie sound. You should know. After all, you're sleeping with his wife. David. My stomach dropped. Listen, Don't bother. He cut me off. I don't need your excuses. I just wanted you to know that I've already decided how this ends. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, heart racing. What the hell does that mean? I rushed to Delilah's place, barely able to think straight. When she opened the door, she smiled, but I grabbed her shoulders. We need to talk. Now. She blinked. What's wrong? David knows. Her face drained of color. Well, what? I pulled out my phone, showing her the article and explaining everything. Her hands trembled as she held the phone. Then, to my shock, she burst into tears. I didn't know, she sobbed. I thought he was just suspicious, but I didn't think he'd do something like this. I took a deep breath. Delilah, listen to me. He's not just some jealous husband. He's a professional, and he's already planned something. She shook her head, eyes wide with panic. What do we do? I didn't know. But one thing was clear. We had to act fast. We needed a plan, fast. David wasn't just a man seeking revenge. He was a hunter, one who had been stalking his prey for months. Delilah sat on the couch, her hands shaking. What if we just run? I shook my head. You think we can outrun him? He's been planning this for months. If we run, he'll know exactly where to find us. She wiped her tears, trying to steady her breath. Then what do we do? I looked around. Every shadow in the room felt like it was watching us. We set a trap. If David had been watching, we needed to feed him false information. I grabbed my phone and sent a text to my best friend, Kyle. Me. Need you to help me fake a fight. Make it loud. Public Kyle. WTF. Are you in trouble? Me. Just trust me. David is watching. Kyle. I got you. I turned to Delilah. We're going to act like we're breaking up. If he thinks I'm out of the picture, he might slip up. Her eyes widened. And if he doesn't? I hesitated. Then we'll know just how far he's willing to go. That night, we went to a restaurant, one we knew had security cameras. Kyle was already there, sitting at the bar. As soon as we walked in, he got up and stormed toward me. You son of a bitch, he shouted, heads turned. The entire restaurant fell silent. You think you can sleep with your best friend's wife and get away with it? I clenched my jaw. Kyle, not here. No, fuck that. He shoved me, sending me stumbling back. You ruined everything. Delilah played her part perfectly, stepping between us, crying. Please, just stop. Kyle turned on her. And you? You're nothing but a lying, cheating... I cut him off with a punch. The sound of fist-meeting jaw echoed through the room. It was all for show. But to the cameras and to anyone watching from the outside, it looked real. Security dragged us out, and I made sure to storm off in the opposite direction from Delilah. I didn't look back. Hours later, I got the message I had been waiting. For an unknown number. Pathetic, you think that changes anything? Her shiver ran down my spine. David had seen everything, and he still wasn't done with us. I gripped my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. David had taken the bait, but he wasn't backing down. If anything, he was taunting me. Kyle sat across from me, rubbing his jaw where I had punched him earlier. You sure he bought it? I showed him the message. His eyes widened. Damn. That dude's unhinged. I exhaled slowly. Which means we're running out of time. Delilah, sitting beside me, barely spoke. She just stared at the screen, her face pale. I turned to her. Are you okay? She nodded, but I wasn't convinced. Delilah, I said softly, you don't have to be strong all the time. Her lip trembled, but she refused to cry. Instead, she looked up at me, determination hardening her expression. No more running, no more hiding. We end this. We needed to make David feel safe. If he believed Delilah was vulnerable, if he thought she had no one left, he'd make his move. So we set the stage. Delilah posted a series of cryptic messages online. Everything is falling apart. I have no one left to turn to. I made so many mistakes, and I don't know how to fix them. Sometimes I wonder if leaving was a mistake. It was all designed to lure him in. Sure enough, it worked. 2 days later, David finally broke his silence. Delilah's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then paled. It's him. I leaned over, reading the message. David, I never wanted this to end like this. Meet me at our old place, let's talk. Kyle let out a low whistle. Wow, he really thinks she's just going to show up like a lost puppy. I clenched my fists. He's planning something. This isn't just a talk. Delilah swallowed, hard. So, what do we do? I looked at her, then at Kyle, then back at the message. We go, I said. But not the way he expects. David wanted Delilah to come alone, which meant we had to make it look like she did. Kyle pulled some strings and got us a tiny hidden mic, one Delilah could wear under her dress. We set up a backup team. Kyle, plus 2 trusted friends waiting. Nearby in a car. And me? I would be closer than David realized. Delilah would walk in. She would act like she was lost, confused, vulnerable. And when David revealed his hand, we'd strike first. The abandoned house looked exactly as we remembered. It, dark, eerie, filled with memories that no longer felt like ours. Delilah hesitated at the front door. She took a shaky breath, adjusting her tiny microphone. You ready? I whispered from my hiding spot just outside the house. She nodded. Then she stepped inside, and the door locked behind her. The moment the door slammed shut, Delilah's breath hitched. The room was dark, only a faint flickering light from a broken lamp in the corner. The air was heavy, suffocating, as if the house itself had been holding its breath. She reached for her phone, but before she could react, a voice came from the shadows. I knew you'd come back. Delilah's entire body stiffened. David stepped forward, his face partially illuminated by the weak light. His expression was unreadable, calm almost and smug. Why wouldn't you? He continued, tilting his head. You always needed me, Delilah. You just forgot that for a little while. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. You don't know me anymore, David. A slow smirk curled on his lips. Oh, but I do. David stepped closer, forcing Delilah to step back. I saw your posts, he murmured. You're lost. Confused, just like before, and I get it. You made a mistake leaving me, but I'm not angry, Delilah. His voice softened, dripping with fake sympathy. I forgive you. Her stomach churned. He was still playing his sick little game. "I don't need your forgiveness," she said firmly. David's expression darkened. "You always say that. But you never mean it." He took another step closer. This time, Delilah didn't move back. Instead, she lifted her chin and said, "You want to know why I came here?" David paused. She met his gaze, unwavering. "I came to watch you fall." Silence. For the first time, David's composure cracked. Just a flicker. Just enough. "You think you have control here?" He scoffed, but there was something behind his voice, something uneasy. Delilah took a slow step forward. "I used to be scared of you," she whispered. "I let you control me, let you convince me I was weak." She smiled, cold and sharp. "But you were wrong." David's jaw tensed. "Delilah, she kept going. You wanted me to be broken, dependent, but guess what?" She leaned in, her voice a razor-sharp whisper. "I'm not your puppet anymore." A sudden thud echoed through the room. David turned, just in time to see the door burst open. Kyle. The backup team, and most importantly me. "Game over, David." My voice was low, steady. David's eyes darted wildly, his breathing picking up. "Well, what the hell? Did you think she was alone?" Kyle sneered. "God, you're dumb." Took a slow step forward. "This is what's gonna happen. You're going to answer for everything you've done. And if you think there's any way out of this," I smirked. "Think again." David's hands clenched into fists. But he wasn't smiling anymore. He was trapped, and he knew it. David's breathing was uneven, his eyes darting between all of us. He knew he was done. Kyle cracked his knuckles. "Not so cocky now, huh?" David took a slow step backward, his back pressing against the wall. He forced a smirk, but his confidence was crumbling. "You think this changes anything?" he sneered. "You think I don't have an escape plan?" I took a step forward. "Oh, I know you do, but guess what?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "You're already exposed." David's smirk vanished. "What?" I turned the screen toward him. "Live stream, thousands of people watching right now. They've seen everything." His face drained of color. Delilah crossed her arms. "I made sure the world sees the real you." Kyle grinned. "That means no hiding, no explaining it away, no gaslighting your way out." David's fingers twitched. His breathing became shallow. For the first time, he looked truly afraid. "You—" His voice cracked. "You set me up?" I tilted my head. "No, you set yourself up. We just let you walk into the trap." David let out a harsh laugh, but it was hollow, desperate. "You think this will destroy me?" He took another step along the wall. "You don't know the people I know. This won't—" Bang! The door burst open again. Police officers flooded the room. David barely had time to react before he was pinned to the ground. "David Carter, you are under arrest for harassment, stalking, and multiple other charges. You have the right to remain silent." "No, no, no, no," David thrashed. "This isn't happening. You can't—" I crouched beside him. Checkmate. The moment they dragged David away, the room felt lighter. Delilah let out a shaky breath. Her eyes met mine. "It's over." I smiled. "Yeah, it is." Kyle threw an arm around both of us. "So, we celebrating or what?" Delilah laughed. A real, genuine laugh. The first in a long time. I looked at her. "You okay?" She exhaled. "For the first time in years?" "Yeah, I think I am."